This is a world shrouded in darkness, an enclosed realm where an eerie black water ripples endlessly in a seemingly boundless expanse. Above this black water lies a brilliant starry sky, with a majestic Milky Way hanging immutably at its center for millennia. At this moment, beneath the starlit sky and atop the black water, a small boat drifts slowly. On the boat rests a wooden table, holding brushes, ink, paper, and an inkstone. Beside the table sits an old man gazing up at the stars. In his hand, he holds a brush, marking the positions of the stars he observes onto a white sheet of paper. However, some of these stars' positions have been deliberately altered by him. After adjusting these stars' positions, the old man lifts his head once again to examine the night sky, his brows furrowing as he notices the stars above remain unchanged despite his modifications. Evil ancestor, are you still trying to do this? A voice called out from nearby. Moments later, a young man clad entirely in black descended from the sky, landing beside the evil ancestor. He glanced at the star chart the evil ancestor had been altering and then surveyed this exclusive world the evil ancestor inhabited. This was the purified world, a vast inner space comparable to the 10 greatest lower dimensions, located in the extraterritorial lands. It was a space the evil ancestor alone possessed. All the demons of the extraterritorial evil clan knew that the evil ancestor enjoyed solitude and often disappeared on journeys to unknown places. According to the young man's recollections, the evil ancestor had spent countless years attempting to rearrange the stars' positions in the sky of this world. Despite repeated failures, the evil ancestor never ceased his efforts. We are the evil clan, yet there are things more wicked than us. How fascinating, the evil ancestor remarked with a smile, setting down his brush. His appreciative gaze lingered on the galaxy above. We can alter any law, yet we cannot move these stars. Why do you think that is? I don't know, the young man replied. It's because these stars do not belong to the domain of our extraterritorial world, nor even to the great thousand worlds. To us, they are utterly out of reach, the evil ancestor explained. Ancestor, I believe if we can see something, there must be a way to reach it, the young man countered. No, you don't understand. Some things are eternally unattainable, the evil ancestor replied. He turned his head slightly and asked, What brings you here? The servant seeks an audience with you, the young man answered. The servant of the demon ancestor? The evil ancestor mused, hesitating briefly before nodding. Let him come. Understood. The young man made a slight gesture, creating a spatial passage within the dark void. From this passage stepped a radiant figure clad in white light, the servant. The young man immediately departed, vanishing into the distance, understanding the evil ancestor's aversion to being disturbed unnecessarily. What is it? The evil ancestor asked, continuing to paint with his brush, inscribing patterns of laws on the paper. As his brush moved, the light shrouding the servant dissipated rapidly, revealing an odd, smooth cube with an eye on each of its 6 faces, capable of perceiving all directions of the heavens. Ha ha ha. So, this is your true form? The evil ancestor laughed heartily, slapping the table in amusement. The demon ancestor keeps a cube as a pet. Suppressing his rage, the servant sighed, knowing he could not retaliate against the evil ancestor's mockery. Evil ancestor, do you plan to feign madness forever? My eyes see through all pretense. Ah, yes, your 6 eyes. The evil ancestor chuckled before his tone abruptly grew serious. What is it that brings you here? The servant's response silenced the evil ancestor's laughter. You've wandered the extraterritorial world, the great thousand worlds, and many lower dimensions under the guise of freedom. Your true purpose is to uncover the structural shape of the domain world, isn't it? What did you just say? The evil ancestor's brows furrowed as he asked, his tone tinged with surprise. It's an open secret where the great thousand, extraterritorial, and lower dimensions are positioned relative to one another. Yet no one has studied what lies beyond them, the very structure of the domain world. Among all its inhabitants, you are the first to do so, the servant declared. How remarkable! The evil ancestor sighed, a touch of regret in his tone. He picked up his brush and began sketching on the paper again, his expression betraying deep contemplation. Evil ancestor, don't be so hasty to erase me, the servant warned, seeing through the evil ancestor's intent. Among all the worlds, only one thing resembles the structure of the domain world. The evil ancestor paused mid-stroke and glanced at the servant. Then he resumed his work, drawing a circle on the paper. A bubble, the evil ancestor remarked. Precisely a bubble, the servant affirmed. So, I am the first to discover the domain world's bubble-like structure? The evil ancestor asked. Yes, the servant replied. Then what are you? Don't you know it too? The evil ancestor erupted in sudden anger, hurling his brush onto the boat's deck. I come from another bubble world, one far removed from this place, the servant answered. We have experienced wars you cannot imagine. Compared to the worlds in our conflicts, your bubble world is not even a fledgling calf, at most, a mouse. Then you're even less than a mouse, the evil ancestor sneered, his voice laced with disdain. Indeed, in my original world, I possessed little combat power, the servant admitted. Are you challenging the entire domain world? The evil ancestor asked. What of your original world? Destroyed, the servant replied without hesitation. I feel no regret, as such destruction is common outside. Thousands of worlds more powerful than yours are destroyed every moment, while thousands of others are born, surpassing your domain world in strength. Out there, a net filters out worlds like yours. Only the golden ones remain. And this net is? The evil ancestor inquired. The rule of mass, the servant explained. Not the pseudo-laws that even rulers like you can alter. Do you mean those stars? The evil ancestor gestured toward the immutable celestial bodies above. No, it's something else entirely, the servant clarified. Imagine the outside as a vast ocean. Your world is merely a bubble within it. All bubbles will eventually rise to the surface and burst, unless they can prevent their destruction. The evil ancestor frowned, deep in thought. And this prevention involves? Massachusetts worlds rise because their mass is too light. Mass includes continents and other material substances. To achieve enough mass to resist rising, a world must plunder the continents and materials of others. The entire ocean is engaged in a war for mass, a rule no one can alter. Is the outside truly an ocean? The evil ancestor asked, astonished. No, ocean is a metaphor. But the outside has boundaries. Worlds with insufficient mass drift toward these edges, much like bubbles ascending in water, the servant explained. But even if what you say is true, how can two bubble worlds come into conflict? Our inhabitants cannot leave this domain world, the evil ancestor argued. That's because your supreme being dismantled the original domain world into 3 major worlds and a lesser thousand world, imprisoning you all within, the servant replied. That muddled old fellow? The evil ancestor scoffed. So, what is your purpose? The servant's reply was unhesitating. To exact revenge on those who destroyed my original world. I want to join forces with you. I know how to reassemble the 3 major worlds your supreme being separated. Once reunited, you might achieve a power strong enough to leave this place. The evil ancestor fell silent, lost in thought. Think about it, evil ancestor. The path lies before you, the servant added before retreating into a distorted space, vanishing from sight. Left alone in the purified world, the evil ancestor stood with his hands clasped behind him, gazing at the countless stars above. A weary sigh escaped his lips. The rules we change. First fragmented world. When Xiao and Long Yuan arrived at this world, the superworld, which spanned tens of millions of miles and was home to hundreds of billions of lives, had become eerily empty. It could be said that, apart from microorganisms, the only intelligent being remaining was one person. The patriarch of the heavenly clan, the heavenly emperor. Is this my homeland? Long Yuan stood firm between heaven and earth. Though his face remained calm, his heart was filled with excitement. He breathed in the pure air of this world, relishing it. The surrounding doqi was swirling around him, and Long Yuan felt somewhat intoxicated by it. After all, this was the Do-Chi world he had searched for over millennia, though it was merely a fragment. Heavenly Emperor, Senior, I'd like to invite you to witness the upcoming creation scene with me. What do you think? Xiao Yin said with a faint smile to the somewhat dazed Heavenly Emperor. Lord of Dimensions, may I ask, what exactly is going on here? The Heavenly Emperor asked Xiao Yin, his gaze also drifting to Long Yuan. From the man beside Xiao Yin, the Heavenly Emperor felt a transcendent presence that seemed to transcend even heaven and earth. Because of the upcoming events, I've relocated the people of this world to other fragmented worlds, Xiao Yin replied. Everyone has been moved to other worlds? The Heavenly Emperor was shocked. To move an entire world's inhabitants, including magical beasts, to other realms. What kind of power was needed to achieve such a feat? The Heavenly Emperor could hardly imagine it. However, he soon accepted the reality, as he couldn't fathom just how powerful the man before him was. For now, he would consider him a divine being. They're all quite safe, so you needn't worry, Xiao Yin reassured him. So, what exactly is it that you intend to do next? Why did you have to move so many people? The Heavenly Emperor asked again. You already know that this Do-Chi world is merely one of the hundreds of fragments from the ancient Do-Chi continent. Although it's the largest, it's still just a fragment, Xiao Yin said. Would you like to see what the ancient Do-Chi continent looks like when it's recombined? Upon hearing Xiao Yan's words, the Heavenly Emperor realized what Xiao Yin was planning. This task was clearly much more difficult than relocating an entire world's population, because Xiao Yin intended to recombine all the worlds and restore the ancient Do-Chi continent to its original grandeur. The thought of this made the Heavenly Emperor gasp. He had to admit that Xiao Yin was becoming an increasingly terrifying figure in his eyes. This power was far beyond his understanding. The Lord of Dimensions truly couldn't be judged by ordinary standards. And Xiao Yin had just implied that he wanted him to witness the recombination of this world. This is the largest fragmented world, so I'll use it as the center. Other worlds will collide with it, and the resulting destructive force will be enormous, Xiao Yin said. He then turned to Long Yuan. Senior Long Yuan, I need to leave here and head to the central point of the dimensions. Only there can I control all the fragmented worlds simultaneously. If the destructive force becomes so overwhelming that even the Heavenly Emperor cannot withstand it, I'll rely on you to protect this place. Hearing Xiao Yan's words, Long Yuan snapped out of his trance, his surroundings still infused with swirling Do-Chi. He took a deep breath and nodded at Xiao Yan. Go ahead and do what you must. The world my father once ruled, I hope it can be restored in your hands. Restoration is certain. As for whether it will return to the ancient landscape, I doubt it's likely, Xiao Yin said. When all the fragmented worlds combine, the energy of these worlds will merge and form even stronger Do-Chi. While it won't be as powerful as the Do-Chi of the Great Thousand Worlds, it won't be as distant as before. With the right method, nearly all powerful beings can assimilate it with the spiritual energy of the Great Thousand Worlds. As for the material aspect, it will be shattered completely. All matter will mix and reform into a completely new world map. I anticipated that, Long Yuan replied calmly. As long as the world is restored, I believe my father can rest in peace. Lord Dragon Emperor is a figure who bridged the past and the future of the Do-Chi world. I will inherit his great wish, Xiao Yin said. As he spoke, the space behind him began to twist, and with Long Yuan's and the Heavenly Emperor's gaze upon him, Xiao Yan's figure finally vanished into the heavens and earth. Once Xiao Yan was gone, only Long Yuan and the Heavenly Emperor remained, and the once empty world seemed even more desolate. May I ask how to address you? I am the patriarch of the primordial ancient dragon clan, Dragon Origin said to the Heavenly Emperor, and then added a surprising statement that made the Heavenly Emperor's gaze freeze. However, this primordial ancient dragon clan is not the same as the current primordial ancient dragon clan of the Do-Chi world. The Do-Chi world, the central hub of dimensions, within the endless, profound darkness, hundreds of light bubbles silently float. Here, it seems as though there is no concept of time. Everything feels eternal. Previously, Xiao Yin had no knowledge of this place, and even less how to reach it. But after being brought here once by the dimension embryo, he could now rely on certain traces to return. Of course, this was only possible if he and the dimension embryo were in perfect harmony. Now, the dimension embryo had bestowed all of its abilities upon Xiao, possibly including the ultimate method to destroy dimensions. Buzz. As Xiao floated between the fragmented worlds, each radiating faint light, in his eyes, these hundreds of shattered worlds had transformed into another form, hundreds of pieces of various sized blocks. His task was to piece them together. All right, let's begin. A deep exhale escaped Xiao lips. He then raised his hand, a hand that would determine the fate of the entire Doqi world, and became the controller of its destiny. Piecing together all the fragmented worlds was no simple task. Even though Xiao had become the undisputed Lord of Dimensions, he still had to proceed with caution. Thus, he didn't immediately use the power of dimensions to collide all the fragments into the first world. Instead, he gently pressed a finger onto a miniature fragmented world that was several thousand miles in size and pushed it towards another miniature world not far off. Though the two worlds were less than half a meter apart in Xiao view, on a macro scale, they were actually millions of miles apart. After pushing the miniature fragmented world, Xiao expected it to speedily collide with the other, but after several breaths, the distance between them had barely decreased by 1/10. Xiao was perplexed. Could it be? As he watched the tiny glowing point move forward at a sluggish pace, Xiao seemed to have a sudden realization. I need to go take a look. The murmured words left his lips, and his figure disappeared from this central hub of dimensions. Buzz. Meanwhile, within a fragmented world, the space began to distort slowly, and a figure stepped out, Xiao. He glanced at the fragmented world in front of him, which was the one he had just pushed. He wanted to find out what caused the slow progress of this world. Boom. However, just as Xiao arrived, a terrifyingly intense shockwave engulfed him. The entire realm fell into a world-destroying tremor. Yet, this tremor couldn't interfere with Xiao, now the Lord of Dimensions. His gaze remained fixed ahead, where he sensed an extremely violent shockwave sweeping toward him. The destructive force enveloped the entire Doqi world. All the space was in a state of distortion, and even the tectonic plates of the continents were on the verge of collapsing. What he saw before him was true world-destroying chaos. Xiao frowned as he watched this scene. Then, the power of dimensions spread out, covering the entire world and extending beyond it. He enveloped an area thousands of times larger than the size of the fragmented world. Only after spreading this detection force did Xiao realize the cause of the catastrophic tremors. This world was charging forward at a speed of tens of thousands of miles per second, heading toward the boundless dark space ahead. No, there was another world of the same size several million miles away. At this speed, in less than 10 minutes, the two worlds would collide with enough force to shatter any expert below the level of Do D. So that's it, Xiao finally understood. The two light points he had seen earlier in the central hub of dimensions, moving slowly toward each other, were actually moving at an extremely terrifying speed. Upon thinking of this, Xiao couldn't help but smile faintly. Since that was the case, he would simply stay here and witness the collision of these two small fragmentary worlds. He would watch the grand fusion of worlds unfold. Hovering in midair, Xiao sat cross-legged. His gaze remained fixed on the edge of the fragmented world. Time quietly passed as he waited. After about 5 or 6 minutes, the outline of another colossal world gradually emerged at the edge of this world. Through the sky's dome, Xiao could see that it was a smooth, spherical membrane several thousand miles in size. In fact, all fragmentary worlds had such bubble-like structures. Within them, a vast, flat land stretched across. This scene illustrated what it meant for the heavens to be round and the earth to be square, or perhaps more accurately, the ground was also round, like a thin disk, with an inverted hemispherical giant membrane above it. This massive membrane, tens of thousands of miles in diameter, floated with clouds. The starlight above was actually coming from beyond this bubble-like membrane, refracted into these worlds. This refractive phenomenon existed in all fragmentary worlds, including all lower dimensional worlds and even the Great Thousand Worlds. The starlight came from an unknown, distant place, so far that even a ruler stage expert could never reach it, no matter how long they lived. But it was precisely because of this that all worlds, including the Great Thousand World, shared the same starry sky, the same sun and moon. No one could change this arrangement. At least in the Great Thousand World, the extraterritorial worlds, and the lower dimensional worlds, no one could alter it. The so-called star shifting was simply a distortion of space, making the already refracted celestial light warp further. In reality, the positions of the stars remained unchanged. Boom. Around the 7th minute, the two enormous worlds, each tens of thousands of miles wide, finally collided with a violent force. The terrifying power caused countless dimensional rifts to appear throughout the two fragmentary worlds. Space collapsed, and the Earth shattered and disintegrated. Fragmented worlds, continent of Do Chi. Huff, huff, huff. The winds and clouds between heaven and earth surged at an abnormal speed. This phenomenon caused countless strong individuals to lift their heads and gaze at the heavens. By now, those who had arrived from other worlds had been properly settled by Kai Lin and the others. At the same time, the members of the Yin, Lei, Gu clans, along with the primordial ancient dragon clan, had temporarily relocated to Zhongzhou in the Black Corner domain. All the powerful individuals were now gathered within the Heavenly Mansion. On a massive square within the Heavenly Mansion, numerous figures had assembled. At the forefront stood Yao Lao and various other strong figures from different clans. Mother Kai Lin, has father started yet? Xiao Lin asked as he gazed at the sudden turbulence in the skies. His voice was directed toward Kai Lin, who stood beside him. I'm not sure, Kai Lin replied. While merging other worlds, he likely wouldn't let this world suffer noticeable effects. However, seeing the sudden changes in the heavens and earth, I think he may have already begun. By the way, Mother Kai Lin, what's wrong with Sister Xiao? She hasn't woken up yet, Xiao Lin inquired again. Xiao forcibly merged two activated Do Di bloodlines, which caused damage to her soul. Although the damage isn't severe, it's spread throughout every part of her soul. Recovering in a short period is highly unlikely, Kai Lin said while gritting her teeth. She then gently stroked Xiao Lin's head and added, Don't you ever try reckless things like this. Your father, after all, can sometimes be too straightforward in his actions. After speaking, Kai Lin continued to gaze at the ever-changing heavens before her. She made up her mind that once this matter was resolved, she would find a way to wake Xiao. Otherwise, she would never forgive Xiao Yin. Meanwhile, in another region of the heavens and earth, millions of miles away, waves of destruction surged violently. Boom! Two fragmented worlds collided rapidly, generating a force that shattered their respective continents into countless fragments. Space continuously unraveled, and dimensional fissures appeared everywhere. The scenes of destruction were so overwhelming that even the extraterritorial evil clan, were they to pass by, would lose all appetite for invasion. Sitting cross-legged at the pinnacle of this shattered dimensional world, Xiao Yin, who sought to observe the entire merging process, turned his gaze toward the edges of the colliding worlds. At this moment, he finally confirmed the conjectures in his heart. Xiao Yin noticed that, regardless of the destruction within the two worlds, the bubble-like membranes enclosing the fragmented worlds only showed ripple-like distortions without breaking. Instead, they began merging visibly to the naked eye. The merging of two worlds essentially boiled down to the fusion of these two membranes. Boom, boom, boom. The bubble-like worlds, each tens of thousands of miles in size, merged in a violent and direct manner. The merger continued for nearly half a day, during which the outline of a new world, almost 50,000 miles in diameter, gradually emerged before Xiao Yan's eyes. It was a new world. Yet this newborn world had neither continents nor oceans. The only visible feature was an endless expanse of molten magma and the pervasive heat filling the entire realm. The sight reminded Xiao Yin of the demonic flame space he encountered decades ago with the pure lotus demon flame. However, the creative magnificence before him was far grander than anything he had witnessed back then. Buzz. After another half-day of fusion, The newborn world began stabilizing gradually. However, it still contained numerous dimensional fissures, remnants of the collision. The sheer scale of the damage made it nearly impossible for the world to repair itself entirely within a short period. It succeeded. Looking at the world before him, fragmented yet brimming with a sense of rebirth, a smile crept onto Xiao Yan's face. These two worlds were mere test subjects for his experiments. Now, it was clear the experiment had succeeded. Though life could not yet exist in this world, it was evident that all worlds began from such a starting point. Once everything stabilized, life would thrive. Xiao Yan's figure slowly disappeared from the newborn world. With the experiment successful, he was ready to proceed with the next phase of his plan, merging all fragmented worlds, including the two small ones that had just fused. However, Xiao Yan understood that the difficulty of merging would now grow exponentially. It had taken him nearly a day to merge two small fragmented worlds, each tens of thousands of miles in size. Yet the remaining fragments were millions of times larger. In the central hub of dimensions, hundreds of light points still floated serenely. Xiao Yan reappeared among them, taking a deep breath as he surveyed the fragmented worlds before him. What lay ahead was the true merging of great worlds. In the first fragmented world, high above in the heavens, a glowing dome roughly a few feet in size floated. Within it stood two figures who had been waiting here for several days. Dragon Origin and the Heavenly Emperor. Since Xiao Yan had departed this world 4 days ago, neither knew where he had gone. For Dragon Origin and the Heavenly Emperor, however, such a time passed in the blink of an eye. Merging fragmented worlds was no small task. It would take months, perhaps even years, just to begin. Thus, the two waited patiently for news from Xiao Yan. During this time, Dragon Origin shared countless ancient tales with the Heavenly Emperor, including details about the Do-D Alliance, formed by hundreds of Do-D-level experts, known as the Emperor Alliance. To the Heavenly Emperor, these accounts seemed utterly unbelievable, far beyond the scope of his imagination. So you're saying that the Do-Chi worlds today are in a state of decline? The Heavenly Emperor asked Dragon Origin. If my father hadn't disassembled the Do-Chi world into numerous fragmented worlds back then, the entire realm would have long been eradicated by the extraterritorial evil clan. Breaking it apart was a small price to pay, Dragon Origin replied. Indeed, from the perspective of Dragon Origin and others of his caliber, dismantling the dimensional plane was a minor cost. If they hadn't done so, the plane would have faced complete annihilation. I've waited 10,000 years. Dragon Origin gazed at the heavens before him with a sigh. The entire primordial ancient dragon clan has awaited this moment. I didn't experience the era when dimensions were shattered into fragments. But while you and the Great Thousand Worlds were searching for us, we were also striving to reach the Great Thousand Worlds, the Heavenly Emperor remarked. Xiao Yan's emergence signifies a turning point for the entire Do-Chi world. He's a genius and a ruthless figure, Dragon Origin commented. Back when we encountered him in the self-contained space of the dimension embryo, I already sensed it. For Xiao Yan to rise from a tiny fragmented world to where he stands today, the journey must have been fraught with unimaginable peril. Facing life and death trials must have become routine for him. Xiao Yan had inherited the aspirations of the Dragon Emperor. Dragon Origin longed to witness the day Xiao Yan placed the Do banner firmly in the extraterritorial lands, commanding respect and awe. The two continued conversing, patiently waiting for Xiao Yan's return. Finally, on the 5th day, Dragon Origin's brows furrowed slightly, a faint smile emerging on his face as he looked toward a certain point in the void. Buzz. Before Dragon Origin's gaze, the space ahead rippled, and a dimensional pathway slowly formed. Emerging from the passage was a figure draped in a black robe, Xiao Yan. Seeing Xiao Yan, the Heavenly Emperor's face lit up with joy. He had no idea what Xiao Yan had been doing over the past 4 or 5 days, but he knew that whatever it was, it must have been beyond imagination. Apologies for the wait. Xiao Yan stepped forward to greet Dragon Origin and the Heavenly Emperor. How did it go? Can the fragmented worlds be merged? Dragon Origin asked eagerly. I conducted a trial with 2 smaller fragmented worlds. The process aligned closely with my expectations. I believe the great merger will proceed smoothly, Xiao replied confidently. Then let us begin. Dragon Origin declared, unable to contain his excitement. As the merging process continued, the fragmented worlds began colliding one after another, creating a vast and unprecedented spectacle of destruction and creation.